Thank you. Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council for Monday, September 17th, 2018, to order. We'll begin by singing our national anthem. I will ask all who are able to rise, and Councillor Papp lead us in that singing of the national anthem.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you all. It has been moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor King. Be it resolved that the agenda for the September 17th, 2018 regular meeting of council be adopted. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Percy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to add a very brief oral report under 11.1, report from member of council.
Okay, and the topic?
And it's pertaining to a concept plan that the Summerfest committee is working on. I'd like to bring it to council's attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Papp? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Any others? Council colleagues, we neglected to include it on the agenda, but I thought that we should include a report regarding the grand opening of the Meridian Community Center. So if I might have a mover for that, I could speak to it, and then other councillors if they want to speak to it. So Councillor Lane, second by Councillor Papp. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. And the other is I have some additional information on, just to inform the community about Rice Road and the construction that's imminently starting. So if we can add that as an item, perhaps under reports from members of council as well, under 11.1. Councillor Ribbiak, will you move that? Okay, thank you. And Councillor King, you'll second that? Thank you very much. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Any other changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. As amended. Next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. That is any conflicts of interest that any members of council may have. Do any members have any conflicts they need to declare?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Can that be so noted? I have none either. We start the evening with a little bit of a lot of a presentation, and I would ask the Deputy Mayor to join me at the podium. A few years ago, a gentleman from our community came forward and indicated that the service club signs needed fixing up. He indicated that they had been done before, they had been updated, but they weren't looking their best. That information was brought to council, and council in its budget, in its capital budget a few years ago, approved a dollar amount to update the 4 signs that come into town to honor our service club members. Obviously, we want to do that because of their dedication, because of their generosity, and their ways of improving the community. That information was put out to a tender, and the bid was actually won by really a volunteer bidder that put his name forward. Others looked at it and said maybe there wasn't enough to do what we had hoped to do, but a volunteer came forward and said, with a little bit of help, I can do that. He can stretch the dollars and make the signs amazing and representative of our community. And that's what Doug Freeland did. Council will know that he has updated the signs, placed the markers for each of the service clubs. They are completely full, and they look amazing. And they are, as I said, in keeping with our community. So it gives me great pleasure, along with Councillor Ribbiak and all of council, to ask Doug Freeland to come forward and to receive a small token of our appreciation for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug. Let's give him a round of applause, please. Picture of it here. And it says, Appreciation Award, Council of the Town of Pelham extends congratulations and deep appreciation to Doug Freeland for your work on the construction and installation of the service club signs throughout the town. Thank you. It's dated today. It has a little picture here. We'll also be inscribing. I think staff tried to get it done for tonight and they weren't able to. They have to get a different person to inscribe it because the material that you gave is very hard. So they have to find the right person.
Durable.
Very durable. So they have to find the right person to etch it in.
Okay.
But that will be also on the back of the signs. And I know you're going to go through those that extra as well to make it happen.
I
So
can do that.
thank you very much, Doug. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Just a little bit, then now we can get a nicer picture.
That's quite
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that we have some tremendous assets in this community. We really do. We have, just from the picture, you can see how many volunteer groups we have in Pelham. And I'm still very proud that Life Member Paul Bray many years ago got us rolling on the community service club signs. We donated 2 sets of them. This one was a little outside of our scope. But through the whole process, we were able to reduce the cost by over 60%. And we did that by using the resources that we have in our volunteer network. Volunteers in this community have a lot of diversity. They have a lot of talents, they have a lot of outreach. And we all have contacts. We all have personal friends, business acquaintances, that kind of thing. And my service club gave me the latitude to start reaching out to some of those people. I felt badly it took 2 years to put it all together, because it really did. But last fall, it came together, and I just wanted to mention a couple of people that played a big part of that. Precision Custom Welding, Dwayne Otten came forward, reduced the cost of materials and labor, which to a huge extent. Techno Metal Post, Claude LeGraley out of Niagara Falls, stepped up to the plate and halved his costs and his labor. We had Robinson Crane there for us with a very basic quote, and yet with the weather last fall, with some rain and some wind and all kinds of setbacks, he made 6 different trips to 4 different locations and didn't charge us an extra dime, which is kind of exciting. I think that's a testament to the volunteers in this community who actually see the glass half full. Over the past 3 or 4 years, what we're reading in the media and what we're hearing on the streets is that the glass is half empty. And I want the councillors in this community to know that we believe in you people. We believe in the people that are going to step up to the plate, and whoever takes charge in the next couple of years will work with us. But you have a tremendous resource in this community with the volunteer network, and I reach out to you so that you can reach out to us when you're in need. We can accomplish a lot if we're giving an opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doug.
So I have to go.
Remember the Kinsman Club, so please pass along our thanks
Thanks very
to
much.
fellow kin.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, Doug.
Good night.
Thanks again to Doug and those that were involved. and they will be appropriately thanked when those plaques go up on the backs of the signs. So thank you again. Now we move to delegations. We have a couple. The first is Daryl Neufeld with the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Region. He's here to tell us about the annual coffee break. Good evening, Mr. Neufeld.
Good evening. First of all, thank you very much for generously agreeing to allocate a few minutes for me to be here this evening and to share with you a little bit about the Coffee Break campaign and some information about Alzheimer and other forms of dementia, which I think is interesting and which really affects all of us as individuals and as community. As you might know, Coffee Break is a national annual fundraising event for Alzheimer's societies across Canada, and it originated right here in Niagara many years ago. Thousands of coffee breaks are held each year, raising more than $1 million to support the work of Alzheimer's societies. National Coffee Break Day is this Thursday, September 20, and we anticipate that more than 10,000 coffee breaks will take place across the country on that day. Alzheimer's disease is the 7th biggest cause of death in Canada and continues to grow as a public health concern. Today, over 500,000 Canadians are living with dementia, about 25,000 new cases diagnosed every year. And the annual cost to care for those with dementia is currently estimated at just over $10 billion. Dementia, as you probably know, does not discriminate. It can affect anyone regardless of background, education, lifestyle, or status. It is not a normal part of aging. It's one of the fastest growing diseases of our time and still has no cure or effective treatments. Dementia is also a health condition with important social implications that affects our communities. There is often a lack of awareness and understanding of dementia, resulting in stigmatization and barriers to diagnosis and to care. In Niagara, over 10,000 people are experiencing a progressive form of dementia, and the number of cases continues to grow. Last year, we saw more than 1,900 new referrals to our society and educated more than 11,000 Niagara residents. With the diagnosis of dementia, an individual and their family will have questions about what it means, what to do, and who can help, both in the short term and in planning for the future. The services of the Niagara Society are provided to all individuals impacted by the diagnosis of dementia, spouses, families, and friends who also need education and support to facilitate lifestyle, health, and wellness changes for their family member. To support our wide range of programs, the majority of which focus on those with early stage dementia, are provided at no cost to individuals or their families. And in order to fund this, we must fundraise about $500,000 each year, and Coffee Break is our signature fundraising event. They're an important opportunity to invite friends, family, neighbors, co-workers, clients, or customers to come together to enjoy a cup of coffee and even treats at a break time or other social get-together in exchange for making a donation to support the work of your local Alzheimer's Society. Hosting a coffee break, as you know, is easy to organize and provides a fun social opportunity. Our society supplies each host with a free kit, while hosts supply the people and the place. While many of the Alzheimer coffee breaks in Canada will be held on the national day, you can choose a date that is more convenient for you, since our campaign runs from September through to December. So thanks to this council and over 100 hosts, we raised close to $70,000 last year.
That's great. Sure, let's give him a round of applause.
Organizing or taking part in a coffee break event in your community not only raises much needed funds, but it can also raise awareness and encourage discussion about Alzheimer's disease and dementia. You not only make all of the society's accomplishments possible, but you ensure that individuals and their families, your loved ones, friends, and neighbors, know that they are not alone in their journey. So on behalf of the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara, I hope you will again consider hosting a coffee break event this year to make your coffee count. It's a fun and easy way to show your support for the Alzheimer's Society. So again, thank you for your time this evening, and Mayor Dave, I would like to present you, if I may, a coffee break kit.
Okay, thank you. Let me come down there.
Sure. You'll note that the event this year, our prime sponsor is
Meridian. Excellent.
You're familiar with that
We
organization?
are.
Yes,
Thank you
indeed.
so much.
You're very
Really
welcome.
appreciate this, and thank you very much for your
Absolutely.
volunteer involvement in the society as
You're
well.
welcome.
Thank you. There may be some questions from
Sure,
council, we'll see, so
absolutely.
just let me get back to the seat. But thank you very much.
I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Neufeld.
Thank
Do
you.
members of council have any questions for Mr. Neufeld? No? Councilor Path?
Just as every year, I just have a comment. As you're probably aware, I spent most of my career in long-term care for over 3 decades and worked with Doug Rappeljay. And you're absolutely right. At this stage, in this given time, the number of people that I encounter over a period of time, over a year, whose parents, grandparents are going through the early stages of Alzheimer's is undaunted. They have a difficult time trying to cope, and it's no question that the work that you do helps them get through some of the basic aspects and challenges, notwithstanding the fact that at some given point, as I've witnessed with my own eyes, the downward trend continues to a point where I don't want to describe what happens. I think we need to encourage this even more, encourage the work of at the preventive level or for the supportive level, let's put it that way. And I couldn't encourage you more and all of the community to get behind this. Moreover, to that extent, even though we are looking at developing a long-term care campus here, you probably read about it in the paper. One of the components of that is a gentleman who's transferring our long-term care beds and adding additional beds. And I know the mayor and the councillor, that we would support them in not only getting the license for the beds, but to in fact dedicate and ask for treatment beds, actual long-term care beds slated for Alzheimer's. You're right, I forget the number that I was told that are on the waiting list in long-term care for Alzheimer's specialized treatment. I can't meet it. So I am fully supportive, and I know my members of the council and community are, and that they should reach out to you and support you financially as well, and as well morally, because the work that you do is undaunted, and I'm well aware of people that have talked to you, worked with your staff at the Alzheimer's Society, and they have been extremely well helped, even at the times when things are not as well as they should be. So congratulations, and wish you every success for the coffee break. Thank you.
Councillor? Any others? I'm not sure if that it's in the kit, Mr. Neufeld, and you're probably not able to comment on it, but we often, we hear about and are horrified by the 10,000 clients that you have that you're helping. Is there any hope on the horizon for treatment? And, what can communities do or people do to kind of prevent it from happening? Are you able to address that, or can
That's
the
addressed
society?
at the national level.
Okay.
The national arm of the organization is responsible primarily for research.
Okay.
And they're the one, that's the level that's looking into possible cures and treatments. I'm not able to comment on,
Okay.
on the work, other than what I said in my presentation is that there is no effective treatment as yet. But
Right.
that is being worked on.
Yeah, just kind of sustaining or
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, our focus obviously is on caring for those who are
course.
affected and their families as well, but
Yeah.
it's very important.
Right.
So we're
Yeah, it's a
very-
36-hour job every day, right? So, and I guess, Councillor Papp, you raise an interesting point, and maybe, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you this, but it might be interesting to see if the society
Right.
would be able to help with the formulation of the various aspects of the campus that are being developed here in town. So the long-term care beds, I don't know if you're aware, have they ever been able to get involved in the design of those? The region itself, as you know, is
Yeah, well, we're
refining it.
co-located with Lynnhaven,
Right.
which is operated by Niagara Region. So we have partnerships with a lot of long-term care organizations in terms of their specialized dementia services. So we play a role in working alongside some of these organizations. We've been involved in design.
Mhm.
I'm not sure, to be
Okay.
honest with you. But it's something that we're very interested in.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to offer some insight from our perspective
Right.
about what goes into that kind of a facility or that kind of a campus.
I think it'd be helpful both on the region side with those beds that are being redeveloped at Lynn Haven and in Fort Erie and in Niagara Lake, but also even for the private provider that's coming into town. So if you'd be able to just kind of ask about that and see if there could be involvement, and perhaps we
We'll
can.
bring that forward to our, to the management team as
Okay.
well, let them know of your interest in
Okay.
that, and we'd be happy to have conversations about that.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld.
Welcome.
I do have a motion here to receive. It's moved by Councilor Ribbiak, seconded by Councilor King. Be it resolved that Council receive the information presented by the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara, and that staff be directed to make the necessary arrangements to host an Alzheimer coffee break again this year. Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thanks very much, Mr. Neufeld, for your presentation. Thank you. You're welcome to stay all night if you want.
Oh, night.
There you go. Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have B. Clark as Chair of the Active Transportation Committee, and members of the Active Transportation Committee here as well, and I hope Ms. Clark will be able to introduce them all. I know one is wearing a yellow shirt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased to be speaking to you this evening on behalf of the Pelham Active Transportation Committee. There are a number of our members here. Let me introduce them right off the bat. We have Joe Marchant, who's our Vice Chair, Bob Fish, who's been a member of our committee since day one, as has Lisa Gallant, who's also here with us this evening, John Swart, who joined us during the last term, Councillor Beatty, of course, is our regional rep, and Councillor King is our town councillor and liaison.
Thank you.
Have I missed anyone? No? Good. Okay, great. So we're here this evening to do a couple of things. We'd like to give you an update on the work that we've been able to achieve during the last 4 years of our term. And we'd also like to make a request to council this evening. So just to give you a brief overview, as you well know, council formed the Active Transportation Committee in 2008. We're made up of primarily citizen volunteers working with town staff and, of course, the town councillor and regional councillor, as I mentioned. We have about 10 meetings a year, but we're also involved in a variety of other additional activities. Our terms of reference are pretty straightforward. We provide advice to council. Very often it's with respect to the budget and the types of improvements that we'd like to see in the town of Pelham. But we also provide information based on resident input and how our streets and roads can be improved. We've also taken the opportunity since our inception to help advocate and educate the public with respect to active transportation. And I'll tell you a bit more about that in just a minute. As you know, we're involved in regular outreach to residents, and we use this information that we collect from residents to advise you what we're hearing from individuals about walking and cycling in Pelham. We were at the opening this weekend of the Meridian Center, which was wonderful. And of course, we were asking all the folks who came out that day about their impressions of walking and cycling in Pelham and how that might be improved. And as usual, we got a lot of great feedback on Saturday. We've advocated for many new sidewalks and additional bicycle infrastructure in the community. We're very proud of the snow clearing bylaw that we have in Pelham because it makes it safer for everyone to use the sidewalks in Pelham year-round. And of course, traffic calming is always a hot issue, and we get a lot of requests and comments about traffic calming in the community. We're very proud of the fact that Pelham is the only community in Niagara that has achieved both walk-friendly and bicycle-friendly status. And these are outside organizations who have assessed this and given us a silver designation as a bike-friendly community and a bronze designation as a walk-friendly community. A real milestone for us happened about 2 years ago when council supported the completion of an active transportation master plan. That plan is essentially our North Star, the guide that we will be using going forward to help Pelham encourage active transportation in our community. Our members provide input in a variety of ways, including at the very many, it seems, public information sessions, whether they're held regionally or locally. And we provide comments about the cycling and the pedestrian infrastructure as new developments are planned. We're a founding member of Pelham Summerfest, and I know you've all been at the active zone because I've seen you all help with the mini putt and some of the other activities that we have, and we're very proud of that work as well. So you've seen us at lots of community events. Safety and education is promoted throughout the year, whether it's at the farmers market, at the band shell on Thursday nights. The bike valet is now a fixture at the band shell on Thursday nights, and we're happy about that. We've been at the home show and a variety of other events throughout the year. And of course, we initiated the Pelham Slow Rolls last year. So to do some of our work, in addition to the support that the town has provided, we've also obtained numerous grants to support our work, particularly as it relates to pedestrian and cyclist safety in Pelham. Part of that, a recent grant that we obtained, helped us develop and print our brand new cycling map, and I know you have a copy there in front of you. We're very happy that we've finally been able to secure the funds to print this map. It gives anyone who hopes to or wishes to cycle in Pelham a good understanding of the roads, the type of roads, the incline, the famous hills in Pelham, of course, that some cyclists really dream about and others try to avoid. So it's all here in this new map. And it took us a while, but boy, we were sure happy to obtain the funds to have this map printed. And I want to thank particularly Bill Gibson and Councillor Beatty for their help with that. We also work with other active transportation committees, most particularly the Welland and the Thorold groups, and that makes sense because they're on our boundaries, and we've been trying to promote inter-community connectivity with students traveling from here to Welland, to Niagara College, and beyond. We know it's important that we have the cyclists and the pedestrian routes that are important to maintain those connections. We support walk and bike to school activities. So if you see us at Glen A Green or at AK Wig or at St. Alexander's, that's probably what we're doing on that particular day. We're a member of the Active Transportation Niagara Network, which is a network comprised of all the active transportation committees in the region. We get together about twice a year, and our next meeting will be Wednesday evening in Pelham at the new Meridian Community Center. So we're really excited about that, and we're happy to show off the center on Wednesday.
Great.
And finally, we're also represented on the Regional Active Transportation Subcommittee. I am a citizen member on that committee, and Councillor Beatty is the regional representative on the committee and chairs that committee. So that takes us to the master plan. As I mentioned, the master plan was approved by council in 2016, and we know it's a significant guiding document for the town. It will really help us understand and better plan for the improvements that we hope to see. Part of the plan, of course, suggests that we regularly review the plan to make sure that we're on track to take into account any new developments, new planning issues that didn't exist in 2016 when the plan was developed. And we think it's time, after 2 years, to essentially develop that progress report. What we're talking about is a progress report. How have we done? Where have we perhaps accelerated our plans, and where perhaps have we not been able to keep up with the plans that were envisioned, so that we can then better budget and plan for future activities. So we're asking council tonight to support that request and hopefully move that along. The plan gives us a lot of direction when it comes to developing this review or progress report, in that there are 8 detailed maps that really provide the framework for the review. There are a number of elements in the map, in the transportation plan rather, that will help us understand our progress, whether it's an examination of the existing and proposed active transportation routes that we included in the plan, signage and wayfinding, and there were at least 10 priority projects identified in the plan. And we want to make sure we take the time to assess the progress that we've made in respect to all of those projects. And of course, there's the table of budget needs, and our budget needs, I'm sure, always outstrip the capacity that we have to make them a reality. But it's still important to review them to make sure that we're on track and that we can, in fact, allocate some funding to active transportation on an annual basis. So our request tonight, and we understand that it's awkward in that this council, of course, will conclude its term shortly, and we will have a new council in place as of October 22nd or 23rd. But we're hoping that the message...
December 1st. but
December
it is.
1st, thank you. We're hoping that the message still, though, resonates with this council and with the new council coming in. The fact is, we need to review and develop a progress report of the current active transportation master plan. We've made that significant investment in the plan and in undertaking many of the priorities in the plan. It's time to just take a pause, review what we've done, and make some decisions about how to move forward. So we're asking that we have, that you direct staff to develop the terms of reference so that we have a clear scope on this review and this development of this progress report, and that in fact staff be allowed to undertake the review. And of course we would like to be part of that, providing any assistance and input that we can. So that's our request of you this evening.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Let's see if members of council have any questions for you. Oh, did you want to go through you've already mentioned the representative?
I just have 2 more slides, if
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
okay, or
Go
am I
ahead.
over time already? No?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So here is the list of our current members, as you see, and they've been introduced to you this evening. I think there are just a couple who weren't able to make it, Dave Swan and Bill Gibson. Finally, I guess this is my last slide, we want to say some thanks to a number of individuals and groups this evening. First off, we want to thank all of you for your support and encouragement and participation in the many activities that we've promoted in the last number of years. We also want to thank the staff here at the town of Pelham, whether it's Vicky's crew helping us with events, or finance helping me with the funding, or all the other groups, and particularly those in planning and public works, the staff who have assisted us throughout the term of our committee. It's been very important to have that support, and we appreciate it very much. MIAC. We have always had a Youth Advisory Committee member on our committee, and it has just been the best. And I encourage all other active transportation committees to include a MIAC rep. We're the only ones who do, by the way. The others don't. And the reason I say that is our members have always brought great ideas, a lot of passion, a lot of interest, and firsthand experience from students their own age who encounter, safety issues or concerns about getting to school or whatever. And it's really the MIAC reps, when I think back, that have really helped us make a difference. They pushed us to ensure that we finally got that sidewalk on Pelham Street from Glen A. Green down to Pancake. And they pushed us again when we finally got that sidewalk from E.L. Crosley to Lookout. And if you drive by either one of those sidewalks on any given day, you will see lots and lots of students walking along those sidewalks and a lot of other individuals as well. But without the MIAC reps, we had it on our radar, but they made sure it was at the top of our list all the time. And so I encourage all committees to include a MIAC rep.
We do.
And then finally, we just want to thank the residents of Pelham, because they haven't been shy about telling us what they want or what they think, or where they see room for improvement, or what they really love about walking and cycling in Pelham. And so it's their interest, their emails, they're stopping me on the street or at the coffee shop, telling us about, giving us their comments so freely. I think that's really made a difference. So I want to thank them as well. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clark. Very kind with your thanks. Of course, council echoes them as well, and we thank you for your leadership these years. I think you've been the chair of the committee since day one as well, founding member, and provided so much assistance and leadership to the Active Transportation Committee and the other committees to which you are also volunteered as the representative. So thank you very much for your efforts. And to all members of the Active Transportation Committee, thank you very much. That's a good idea. Are there any questions for Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, firstly, and I'd like to echo the Mayor's comments about your dedication and your hard work. And certainly to your committee, kudos for all the work that you've done and all the information and advice you've brought back to council. it's certainly been an education for me, and it certainly has helped us make some, what we think are wise decisions. So thank you very much. My question relates to the review. And I just wondering why your group could not take that on themselves in terms of defining the terms of reference and then undertaking it and reporting back to council in terms of sort of your report card. Or is your thought to get an independent, the terms of reference being provided by an independent third party, and then you being involved in the process? So could you just kind of expand on that?
I don't think we necessarily need an independent third party. I don't think that's what we were envisioning at all. Rather, we'd be happy, I think, to participate in the development of the terms of reference. I think our concern is simply staff time. In order to do this review, it will require the input of staff, and not just Public Works, but perhaps staff from other areas. If we had a cross-functional team, for example, that were to review it. And so it's more the allocation of staff time, I think, that was a concern for us. Not that we think it's going to take an inordinate amount of time, but it will take it will take time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kersey?
So as you sort of thought about this review, were there certain areas within the plan that sort of jumped out to you in your committee that said, hey, maybe we missed the mark here, or maybe we've accelerated in this area? Could you kind of comment on that?
Without getting into specifics, I mean, both have occurred. I mean, we have accelerated some plans just by circumstance. We've taken advantage of funding or circumstances as they presented themselves. And in other cases, though, we know we're a little behind, like wayfinding, for example, and signage. So I think on balance, we'll probably see that the pluses and the minuses will likely equal out, but I think it's important to take stock, and that's really what we're talking about. So it's been 2 years. What have we been able to accomplish, and what do we still have to do? And the plan was written with that intention, that it be reviewed regularly. It wasn't a plan to be put on the shelf and, let's dust it off in 10 years and see how we've done. Rather, it's a living document intended to guide us. And so we need to review it regularly. Perhaps every 2 years is the right amount of time to have lapsed before we take a look at it.
Great, thank you for the information.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you very much. I do have forgive me, as the council rep, I should have perhaps turned to you first. I apologize,
No,
Councillor
that's
King.
fine, Mr. Mayor. I did not have a question for the chair. I just want to make a comment. As sometimes being known as the silent counselor at this table, it's partially because I don't like to keep repeating the same thing over and over again. But in this case, I feel that I really have to, because I have to echo what my counterparts have said about the amount of work and dedication that goes into this committee. They are certainly a dedicated group of volunteers, and I personally, as the council representative on the committee, have thoroughly enjoyed working not only with the group of volunteers, but fully appreciated your skill, ability, and leadership to guide that passionate group of volunteers. So I want to thank you. Thank you very much, Bea.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Of course, Councillor. Anyone else? Councillor Papp?
Very quickly, just to pick up on Councillor King's, the work that you've undertaken, Bea, in your community also is reflective of the values that we embrace as a community of being attractive, being healthy, wellness. So, how can you say, encouraging walking, cycling is all part of what people the people that we've talked to on the streets love. And to that effect, even this past few months, I'm very proud of that our staff have undertaken repairs of sidewalks that were sort of bumpy, crumpy, whatever you want to call it. So people are picking up on it. When it comes to our site plans and new development, there's been a lot, as you've seen, that's happened here in the last 18 to 24 months. But part of it is we've encouraged those developers and those people have come to ensure that they embrace that same, if you want to call it, principle, that aside from motorized vehicles, that we want to make sure that people feel comfortable, whether disabled or fully able, to walk, cycle, and whatever they feel will help them throughout. And I think that gives you and your committee a lot of credit for promoting that. Even to the point that a small story, a young man, 6 years old, his father's a policeman, his mother, I gave them the lights in the bracelet. They had no idea, and they had no idea what it was, and I guess the young boy put it on one night. He went out, and it had a close call, but because those reflectors were there, he had his helmet on, it paid off. They were able to, so kudos to you. So that from the point of view of community safety as well. So congratulations, and I know that you'll continue your work as we move into the next term as part of our overall initiatives. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I was at the AMO conference along with the mayor and some other representatives in Ottawa the year that we got the silver bike friendly. And at that same meeting, Ottawa got the gold. And we promised Mayor Watson that we were going to get a gold, so we're working on this.
That's
so
true, Joe.
really want to thank you for that, and this could be part of the new initiative and how can we improve
Get
to
gold.
show Ottawa that we're as good as they are.
You know me
Thank
too
you.
well. You know I enjoy a challenge, don't you?
Thank you very much, Councillor. A couple of things since councillors have spoken now. I do want to say again to all the committee members, thank you very much. I think it was, and Councillor Papp was there, and I know others that are here were there when we council approved that we would sign the walking charter, and we signed that, and lo and behold, we found out what it meant. That one actually has to follow through on the footsteps that you lay down once you sign that walking charter. And what it's meant, by my calculation, quick calculation, is something like 15 kilometers of additional sidewalks added to the town as a result of your efforts and a result of council as well and staff recommending different sidewalks. 5 kilometers of trails or more. You mentioned Highway 20. Before your work and before the work of council, and there were well, I'll put it this way. Now you can go from Rice Road on a sidewalk all the way to look out on both sides, and on one side to E.L. Crosley, which for 53 years was out in the middle of a corn patch and not connected sort of thing, or a cherry orchard and not connected. And the snow clearing as well, I'm very pleased that you pointed that out. That was something that council grappled with, and you provided so much input into that. And it was the CAO, the Director of Recreation, and myself that had the honor of presenting really similar to what you put together, but with pictures, to the Minister of Recreation and Culture in Nova Scotia and all of the communities out there, because they are grappling with how to get people more active. They are the least active, or they were at that time in February when we were there, the least active province in the country, and they were looking at ways to get more active. And they asked us, as the mid-size, or a small town here, a mid-size there in Nova Scotia, what we did to make it happen and get people active. We told stories of when the sidewalks were first put in, like on Pelham Street. It wasn't even dry, and people were walking on it and anxious to do so, and the same with some of the others that you've talked about, the sidewalks on both sides of Hay Street, which was a challenge to get through, and now to think that, it was a challenge is, you just laughed a little. So the message we gave them was your message that you just explained to us tonight. Just keep working at it. Just keep working at it. Just keep working at it. It's sort of like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And that's what you've done every year. You've stayed on track and stayed on with that plan, and helped indicate to us where the greatest needs are in our community to become more walkable and cyclable. So we dearly thank you for your commitment and your work. And the only thing that reminds me, Councillor Durley, about those signs is we have to get the signs up Ms. Van Ravensway so that we can promote the community, because I don't think a lot of people know that, because the signs aren't displayed as you enter the town. So maybe that's something we can do. So I've spoken a long time, but I do appreciate all of the work of the Active Transportation Committee, both keeping our community walkable and cyclable. Thank you. So I do have a motion. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved that the delegation by Beatrice Clark on behalf of the Pelham Active Transportation Committee regarding their 2018 update be received for information, and that we endorse a review of the master plan and direct staff to undertake this action and advise of possible budget considerations. I presume that's for 2019 and beyond.
Of course. yes.
Okay. Thank you. Do you want to speak to it? Anyone else want to speak to it?
I think just supporting what Ms. Clark did bring forward, and it certainly is a very valuable initiative for our town, and we need to keep on it because it's a great thing and it can always be improved, and we'll get that goal.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you very much. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. We look forward to those results and to our community becoming even more walkable and cyclable. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now we move to, thank you all. Now we move to adoption of minutes. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Minutes of the council meeting of September 4th and of our special council meeting on September 4th, 2018. Any errors or omissions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Now we move to consent agenda items to be considered in block. Are there any items that council would like to lift for separate consideration? All right, if not, we'll deal with them in block. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved, the following consent agenda items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. Presentation of recommendations arising from the Committee of the Whole and policy and priorities for council be approved, and be it resolved that council hereby approves the recommendations resulting from the Committee of the Whole meeting of September 4th and the minutes of the meeting of September 4th, 2018. We have a couple of items of action, correspondence of a routine nature. Be it resolved that council received the correspondence dated August 29th from the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 613 regarding the 2018 Poppy campaign. And the council support the canvassing of businesses and citizens in Pelham through the placement of poppy boxes during the period from October 26th, 2018 to November 11th, 2018. And the council supports and directs staff to meet with the Royal Canadian Legion to discuss the possibility of the town participating in the 2018 Bells of Peace initiative. And the council support the mayor and the mayor-elect announced after the municipal election to receive a pinning of the first poppy. We have information correspondence from the Chief of Emergency Management, which congratulates the town of Pelham for achieving compliance in the 2017 with the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Be it resolved that we receive the correspondence for information. We have correspondence from the Kinsman Club of Fonthill and District thanking the mayor and council for their support, and we receive that correspondence for information. Committee minutes for information. Minutes of the Pelham Public Library Board of June 27th, 2018, and also the Committee of Adjustment hearing minutes of June 5th, 2018, both of which we'll be receiving for information. Comments or questions on any of those items? I hope we can participate in the Bells initiative, which would be the ringing of bells throughout the town in all locations that have bells at 11 on the 11th of November to mark the 100th anniversary commemoration of the end of the First World War. So I hope that we can participate in that and think about bells or buzzers, or perhaps in the new community center, the horns and the something like that, that we can think of ways in which we can participate in that activity. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. We added a few items to the agenda, so thank you very much, Council, for that. The first was Councillor Kersey, Summerfest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and Council, as you know, Summerfest has been with us for some 8 years now. I would categorize it as being outstanding success as a result of volunteers again, staff support, and the hard work of the Summerfest Committee. Summerfest Committee has given back through the support network of our service clubs. We've given back something in the order of $57,000 to the community, and as you know, the service clubs flow it through them, and it goes back into the community and to undertake their work. This year, the Summerfest Committee felt that they wanted to give back more to the community and undertake something of a legacy project that could endear the Summerfest Committee and their work and show the community that Summerfest is not just one big party, but it's an initiative that is here to advance the culture of our community. And what Summerfest hit on, and thinking back in the past, as you know, our beloved arches that were supposed to be there for 1 year and have now become iconic and representative of all things Pelham. The Summerfest Committee thought it would be appropriate that they undertake the preservation of those arches. And so have been looking at it in some detail. And Bill Gibson and Bill Sheldon, both of whom sat on our oversight committee and have significant design capabilities and construction understanding, put together a design for the Summerfest Committee to review. And the Summerfest Committee at our last meeting endorsed the design and the project in principle, but asked me to bring a report back to council so that council and staff would be aware of what Summerfest is looking at. Obviously, Summerfest gave the arches to the community. It's not their arches, and we would need council's approval and staff's endorsement to proceed. Where we are in the process is we have a level D budget that has given us some gross numbers. What we would like to do and what the committee agreed to put forward is that we would undertake a tender through the town processes in order that we could define the costs a little bit better, so that we'd have an understanding in a clearer way what we're getting ourselves into and what we're committing to. So Mr. Gibson was asked to approach town staff to work with them to put the tender together. The tender would be such that it would be really non-committal. It was more of it would be a request for information or quotation.
Okay.
Once those tightened up prices are received, they would go back to the Summerfest Committee for review to see if in fact we can undertake this project. And if it was felt that we could financially support it, then we would bring a report back to council as a recommendation from Summerfest that we, through the town, undertake the preservation of the arches. So I'm bringing it at this stage as an information report, Mr. Mayor, and hope that, and I'm willing to answer any questions if council might have that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Councillor. Questions to Councillor Kersey? Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kersey, for bringing that forward. I can recall some years ago having a discussion at this table about doing something about preserving what was there, because of course it's plywood, but it needed to be redone in order to preserve it against the weather. And what resulted was in good preservation of the arches in the form that they are, essentially wood. Is it the concept of Summerfest that the arches be changed from a wooden form to something else, cladding it or stuccoing it or replacing it with marble? I mean, what do you have in mind?
The concept plan.
Not marble.
Not marble, no.
Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mayor. The concept plan is to encase the arches as they are in a powder-coated metal. So it would be coated on each side and the bottom. On the above portion, a track would be created so that we can run hydro lines, we can run speaker wires, some of the things we can't do now. We can hide all of that. And it would create almost an industrial look, but the colors and everything, none of that has been decided at this point, but the concept is to use powder-coated metal. The arches would be first gone over, any rot would be removed and body filled, would then be coated with a tar or a pitch to seal it, and then the aluminum would be applied after that. We've had the arches, I believe, inspected annually by our engineering people when we inspect our municipal properties. And it does not appear to be any significant structural issues. It seems to be more with the cladding, the plywood cladding that is starting to break down and starting to feather out. I'll point out too that I believe in 2020, somewhere in there's a budget item with respect to renewal of the arches.
Okay.
Thank you. And just I guess, final comment. I'm thinking that as long as they're wood, they're going to be thought of as temporary. So I'm hoping that as thought is given to what is needed in order to preserve those as a legacy, your word, that some thought be given to what the material ought to be. I understand and fully appreciate the concept that you have, and that will certainly be good for a number of years. But at some point, I think they need to be made permanent, which would, I think, mean a different material. But thank you. I think it's a great idea. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Councillor Lane?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I do agree with the concept and of making them permanent, that's fine and good, but at some point in time, I guess consideration may need to be taken. Is this always going to be where they are? And in fact, or they may at some point in time need to be moved for whatever might happen in downtown Fawn Hill. There's always a possibility that somebody will come along and say, oh, we need to make a turning lane coming out of Town Square or whatever, and then that might make the arches in fact redundant. So I think that's something that would certainly have to be taken into account long-term before we just went and spent, or they spend money on something that may have to change in the future.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we go back to the original concept of those arches, in fact, the plan was originally that they'd be there 1 year. And they have been designed such that they can be taken apart and moved in as components. And the original plan was to move them into parks and make them pavilions, if you will, so that people could go and have a barbecue and sit under the arches and all that. But as I say, they've become somewhat iconic at this stage of the game. I think your point is well taken, that when we look at the final design, that's probably something that we need to consider, that we would be able to take them apart and move them if necessary, if the design downtown changes, for sure.
Okay, thank you. So you're just simply informing council.
There'll be
I guess there'll be something coming forward at some point?
There will indeed, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Anything further for the councillor? All right, thank you very much for informing us about that. I'm going to probably take a motion at the end of all the reports from members of council to just receive them all formally at that point. So thank you very much. Another item that was added was information about the grand opening. One of the things that I thought we should do is showcase, and I think the town put this out on social media, but formally do so at a council meeting, is show the video that was, or a video that was displayed. It was displayed throughout the weekend. It now has sound. It wasn't, didn't have sound when it was displayed in the atrium. And this is a little video called Moments That Matter and the different uses that this might be used. I don't know if we need to dim the lights slightly. Thank you. Gentlemen? Thanks very much. I think that was important to see the uses, and the idea behind the facility obviously was to help Pelham, as it says at the end slide, create a space for moments that matter. And that moments that matter was a phrase coined by Wade with the Meridian Credit Union when it was first announced the $1 million of support for the Meridian Community Center, and saying this will be a place for moments that matter. And so many in the community have picked up on that. And it was absolutely a delight, I'm sure, for all of council, I know for myself, to officially launch and welcome people at the new Meridian Community Center this past weekend. We did acknowledge that it's been a long and winding road to get to this point over many, many years. I think it was back in the early or mid-1990s when it was acknowledged in our community that something had to be done with the now former arena, and that that facility just wasn't matching what our community was like at that point. And I know that we had 7 thick reports of recommendations about what the desires were for a facility like this, a community space to bring people together. But it was members of this council and this staff that took it and said, we need to look at this a little bit more closely and put together a business case analysis to find out if there was, first of all, not only what the desires were, but what the needs were and whether there was sustaining demand in order to build a facility of this nature. And council organized and put together, along with staff, obviously, and the user groups that were encouraging us, a architectural design advisory committee to design the project. Worked together with all of the user groups. It was a cross-functioning group. An architect was hired and worked together with that group. Ball Construction was hired, and they were the ones that brought their value engineering approach to assist with the concept of the facility. We had a volunteer oversight committee. Bill Gibson and Bill Sheldon were the volunteer members on that committee, and members of staff were involved, Councillor Kersey, that really called on Ball Construction and staff to sharpen their pencils and make sure that the project came in on time and under budget. And the sub-trades, many of them who were local as well, who did the work to put it all together and made sure that it was delivered on time and under budget. And the town staff that, with the CAO as leading this, but also all of the staff that were involved in this project and pulled it all together. There were the donors as well. I mentioned one of them that stepped forward, and many others you saw in the video, those donors that stepped forward and said not only that they believed in the vision, but also that they believed in it so much that they followed it with their dollars and supported this. And we surpassed the fundraising goal of $3 million for the capital campaign, and now we're having a community campaign for funds as well for purchasing and putting your name on the seats in the 1,000-seat Exhibitor Arena. There, by my count, there were at least 2,200 people that went through that facility, maybe more, over the weekend, from the thank you on Friday and the thank you to the volunteers, all groups across the community that were thanked on Friday, and the donors and the sub-trades. And then the event on Saturday, which was the official ribbon cutting, and we had more than 1,000, I'm sure it was 1,100, 1,200 people went through that facility. And then the alumni hockey game, it was a real treat to meet Mr. Gretzky and drop a puck with him. He signed a puck that we will put in the facility as well, and dated it, and so we'll be sure to put that in the facility, and have the alumni players there that were involved in that game. And then even the Junior Bees having their home opener as well for this 2018-2019 season, which they won 4-1 yesterday in the new Exhibitor Arena in the Meridian Community Center. There were a few hundred there as well. So over the course of the weekend, there were so many people that were excited about it, congratulating myself, congratulating council, but really this is a huge congratulations to the entire community for coming together and building this facility, designing it, planning it, funding it, a facility for which we can be proud of for many, many, many years to come, and a facility in which moments that matter across our community will resonate and occur. I want to thank each member of council as well, and I wondered if members of council wanted to add anything to it with your experiences from the grand opening weekend as well? We'll start with Councillor Durling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was very exciting, and you covered it all. But one important thing, and I think just building on a comment that you did make, that the economic development created by this facility and the building this facility created jobs and money, local money of over $10 million that was spent here, and that people working here that did that. So certainly it was an economic driver, and we would be remiss if we didn't mention that. It is an excellent facility. It has done a lot so far, and it will do a lot more as we get into it. Talking to recreation staff, there's going to be some fights for court time and for ice time and all that stuff. It's the demand is becoming greater and greater the more people see it. This is just how important this is to our community. Thank you for the opportunity to say that.
Thank you, Councillor. Any others? Councillor King?
I think the only comment that I wanted to make to it was a comment that I overheard from an out-of-towner, shall I say, at the hockey game on Saturday night. And she obviously was here because she had been invited by actually the parents of one of the players. She had no idea that that was the opening game, or the opening weekend, I should say, of the community center. And her comments that I kept hearing over and over again were just so positive. And hopefully she'll go back to wherever she came from, which I think was St. Catharines, and spread the word on this great community center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Councillor Lane and then a Kersey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, would, in passing, like to make one comment. I had the pleasure after the game on Saturday night, the alumni game, to speak in a parking lot with Mr. Gretzky on their way home. And I wanted to get some concept of just, did we hit the nail on the head with this or what? And young Mr. Gretzky said to me, he says they played their games, their alumni games, in many places all over the country. And he says even his hometown of Brantford with the Gretzky family thing, he says none of the, and I was specific on asking him about the change rooms, and he indicated it's the best change rooms that they've ever been in, and he says the hot water's hot, the cold water's cold. And he says the water actually goes where it's supposed to, down the drain, not out into the floor where it does in the Gretzky complex in Brantford. So that was really a touch to hear such a glowing response from him.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't thank the those individuals on staff that made up the cross-departmental team, specifically Recreation, Culture, and Wellness, and the facilities team. They worked quite diligently in putting the whole program together. I think they spent lots of hours. Lord knows they spent lots of hours during the course of the weekend making sure things ran along smoothly, and that people were warmly greeted, and I think it played the facility very well. So I'd like to extend my personal thanks and council's thanks to both those teams. I think they did a phenomenal job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pop?
So let me add this perspective. We were very, very enthralled and enjoyed the opening of the center. As I've said before, it also is the symbol of what we believe in our community, and building not just a center, but building the capacity of our residents, meeting the needs of the, as I've always said to you about what Mr. Florida said, people come to. Why do they come to this community? So it is an achievement that's part of a multiple forms of things that we can do, and that we can build on this whole process as we've gone through as part of a unification, and building on the fact that people will not only embrace this, but embrace our community as we move forward down the road. So it's a symbol also of cross generations. We have a number of people here who are certain age groups. We also have the young coming back. We also have those that are, and that's exactly what you want to do, is a vibrant, supportive, and embracing community. So thank you for being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anything, Councillor Rivak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Most of what I think and feel has been articulated by others already. There are 2 points, though, that I just want to underscore, if I may. I'd like to build on Councillor Gurley's comments regarding the economic impact of this project. He talked about a direct expenditure of $10 million. That direct expenditure will translate into many, many times that. The ongoing economic impact resulting from the activities that go on within the center, the employment that's at that center, the kind of indirect spending that will occur when people come and participate in what this town has to offer, that's pretty significant. Now, I don't think anybody ever expected that it would be a money-making project. It isn't. It's an amenity that the town provides. It's a service that the town provides for its residents. But it isn't without its economic impact. And I would hope that at some point, perhaps we might ask staff to get someone to do an assessment of what that really is, because I think that there's a good news story there that we have barely scratched the surface of. So that's something I'd like us to think about. And the other observation that I would like to make is the number of children that I have seen in the community center from the first day that it opened. I remember coming in, making a point of coming in and walking the walking track the first day that the community center was opened to the public. And what was going on was a lacrosse tournament right away, a running start. Little, I can't even judge what age.
Paperweights is the
Paperweights,
tournament.
what
yeah.
is that? 5 years of age, 6 years of age.
About this heavy, right?
Exactly. Running through that building, and there hasn't been a time that I've been there that I haven't been impressed with how many young people are using it. And the reason I mention that is because I can recall in the discussions very, very early on in the preparation for this building that people were wondering, where would the young people be who actually make use of the recreational facilities that are there? We don't have children that age in this community. Well, I'll tell you, we have them. They've been crawling out of the woodwork. They've been coming to the community center, and it is great. It's great to see. So those are the observations I make. I think it's a marvelous building. Anywhere, any place would be proud to have it. I'm sure glad it's here. Sure glad the project is behind us. But it was worth doing, and I look forward to seeing a lot of good stuff happen there over the years to come. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If I might, colleagues, two things come to mind. It's not in this video, but in one of the fundraising videos, there's Doug Burr, and the Burr family that donated to the facility, and that was played at one of the events on the weekend. And Mr. Burr said he said it's for the kids. He said, when asked, why would you supporting it, he says, for the kids. He says, the kids need our support.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he wasn't able to be there at the grand opening, but I know his family was there, and his grandkids were running around the facility and all through it as you described. So that was striking. The other was in the video, Rick with the walker, Rick Laney. He came up to, I believe it was Councillor Durley and I, at the home show in 2016, in March, when we were going out with the plan and the idea and describing to the community the financing and getting feedback from the community on the plan. We did that for 5 weeks. And one of the stops was the home show for an entire weekend. And Mr. Laney came up to us and said, you got to build this thing. I want to walk on that track. And he had been in an accident and had the physician in the fall of 2015, and the physicians told him that he would never walk again. And he was hobbling up to us at that event, and there he was for a lot of the weekend. And he says that he's walking the track and going a little bit further every day. So it's for the kids, it's for people like Mr. Laney, and so many others, that moments that matter in people's lives. Some of them will know, some of them will never know. So just want to say thanks to all those that were involved. And now we essentially turn this over to the community. This council turns this over to the community to say, use it. Let's be proud of it. Let's make use of it. And let's celebrate and have it there for many, many, many years to come. Thank you, colleagues. One thing I did ask that we add, if I might turn to another topic, and that is just some information about Rice Road. And I'll be quick on this. I just wanted to inform council and the community. You may have seen some, feels like we just built something and now we're going to rip something up and build something else. But this is, Rice Road is undergoing some construction. The construction started last week. You would have seen that preliminary topsoil stripping and grading, installation of silt fence and delivery materials. We saw those big tubes there, the concrete tubes. Storm sewer installation is scheduled to start, I believe it started today. And pre-construction inspections of homes and businesses is basically complete. We'd encourage people to welcome people into their homes that might be affected so that they can have a pre-inspection and then a post-inspection. This is from the Transportation Engineering, the Senior Project Manager, Mr. Milne, who was here to report to council a few weeks ago. He says it's expected the first phase of construction will continue until late November, early December. The second phase will commence as early as weather allows in 2019. He provided a notice to the community. Essentially, the first phase is from Regional Road 22 north of Port Robinson Road. The project has been awarded to Beam and Rankin Joint Venture Limited. They're going to make every effort to maintain access to abutting properties and minimize disruption. Essentially, it is putting the roadway in and making it an urban cross-section on the west side, leaving the rural cross-section on the east side, and also at certain points making turning lanes, et cetera, for the construction. So we look forward to that work being done. The final piece on this is that we did have a couple of meetings with the regional staff. Council will recall that we had urged them, encouraged them to have perhaps a roundabout or something at the intersection of Port Robinson Road and Rice Road. They now have put together a design plan. They said there just isn't the room, and I tried to hold their feet to the fire on that, and they showed me reasons why there isn't room to do it. But they did put forward a design plan, landscaping, brickwork, et cetera, that they called enhancements at Port Robinson and Rice Road intersection. It is a very nice enhancement, and I believe they've reached out to the CAO, and they need to obtain pricing, et cetera, to the contractor. So they're hoping to include that in the 2019 construction. So we look forward to that intersection when that gets built out in those homes, especially on the south side, that intersection will be more representative of the development that'll be surrounding it. So we look forward to that. So that is my report, unless council has any questions in that regard. I'm going to look for a motion to receive all of the reports regarding Summerfest, the Meridian Community Center, and Rice Road, and that has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor King. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Now we move to staff reports requiring action. There is but one report. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley, that council receives the Department of Community Planning and Development report for information as it pertains to file numbers 26T19-01-20118 and AM0318 relating to River Estates Phase 2 draft plan of subdivision. And the council approved the bylaw attached hereto as Appendix D, amending the zoning of the subject property from agricultural zone A to a site-specific residential 2R2-286, residential multiple 1 RM1-287, and residential multiple 1 RM1-288 zones. and the council approve the draft plan of subdivision as attached in Appendix F, subject to conditions attached hereto as amended. And I'm just going to turn to Appendix E, I apologize. It says Appendix F. Subject to the conditions attached as Appendix E as amended. And Madam Director, you gave us some correspondence, some feedback from the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
Go through that quickly first,
Yes,
please.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I did provide council with a memo, specifically with respect to condition 31. The draft plan conditions are attached as Appendix E, and the recommendation is to delete what is currently written as condition 31 and replace it so that it reads that the developer agrees to dedicate to the town of Pelham, free and clear of any encumbrances, a 7.5 meter wide strip of land at the rear of lots 22 to 36 to be used as a future laneway. So asking for council to consider that change, and therefore change the resolution to indicate the amendments in the draft plan conditions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Questions, comments to the report? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to see this come forward. As I read through the various reports and the attachments thereto, I had some concerns that we might be looking at an appeal and nobody wins on that. And I think the proposal is a reasonable solution that each side gives a little bit, and both benefit and are able to move forward with the plan. I think it will be an excellent plan and an excellent addition to the development in East Fawn Hill. I look forward to it coming forward. I do have a question to our director, more as a point of information, through you, Mr. Mayor, to our director. Could you,
Please.
Madam Director, explain to the public and council what it means to bring forward a neighborhood plan as expressed in clause 32, just so everybody's under the same knowledge?
Thank you. Madam Director?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. There are policies in the town's official plan, in the secondary plan for East Font Hill, as it relates to the demonstration plan, that allows for some adjustments to the demonstration plan, provided that a neighborhood plan is prepared that still complies with the policies of the secondary plan, but would accommodate adjustments to the demonstration plan. So we're still generally meeting the traffic movements and the traffic patterns. We can allow for some adjustments, and this is to accommodate, there's one street connection that's not being made, and because that street connection is not being made, we're asking for the neighborhood plan to be amended. And then moving forward, that becomes or replaces the demonstration plan in this area.
Thank you, Madam.
And the policies in the secondary plan allow for that process, and they do not require an amendment to the secondary plan to go through that process.
Thank you, Madam Director. Council, that was one of the key selling features of the secondary plan, was that built-in flexibility that was allowed within the plan allowed developers to say, yeah, I get the concept plan, but if as we get there, things might change, I might have a slightly different concept, we still achieve the same goals. So I'm pleased to see this. I think this is a good use of the neighborhood plan concept. I look forward to that coming through, Madam Director, and I will be supporting that motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Couple of things, Madam Director. The first is we received some feedback specifically from one individual during the public meetings, but also others that were concerned, adjacent property owners that perhaps have been there for a long period of time. There is a reference in your report. For example, again, as Councillor Kersey speaks about the secondary plan and the demonstration plan, and no doubt the neighborhood plan may also include lands of abutting landowners. How is that dealt with? Those landowners, especially the one individual, feels that, does this mean there's going to be a park on my property, or a rear lane, or whatever? What does that mean? How can you do that to me, et cetera? Perhaps the director can maybe answer that. It is in the report, but if she can answer it verbally tonight.
Certainly, the secondary plan does provide for land use designations on lands that are impacted by the planning area. And so it's identified areas for medium and high density, low density, and park development. The intent of the secondary plan is that's sort of long-term vision of how these lands would develop out. And that would only occur at the point in time that there's a development application for that particular property. It's not to say that council's going to go ahead and develop that park on that person's land today. That's not the intention. If and when that person chooses to either develop their lands or sell their lands to a developer, then they know what the long-term intent is for the future uses of those lands. So whether there's a park there, or medium-density residential, or low-density, or commercial uses, the secondary plan lays out that framework of the land uses. It lays out the framework for the road pattern, and then that's how we go about informing, community-wide what the long-term plan and intent is of a area that's subject to development in the future.
Okay, but it is up to that property owner. The property owner can still have the
Yes,
complete enjoyment of their property.
That's correct. And in this particular case, only the lands that are under the ownership of River Realty are subject to this draft plan of subdivision. There is no plan or draft plan of subdivision on any lands other than their lands. And so when any new, if that property owner wants to proceed with something, then they'd have to go through a similar application process that River Realty has gone through.
Okay, thank you. And just to build on that, I note there's a little spot here next to lot 22. Looks like a little square piece that isn't being developed now, but in the future it would be, should development occur on those adjacent lands. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. That is certainly a remnant piece that would be added to adjacent lands when those adjacent lands would be ready for development. And it's too small to do something with at this point in time.
Perhaps a little parquet or something would be nice in that location in the meantime. Thank you. Your report speaks about it, your staff report speaks about it, the rear lanes, and the amendment 31 that we amended also speaks about rear lanes. So I understand that there's this, is it 7.5 meter strip on the backs of those, on the back of, sorry, the lots 22 to 36, that there's but the developer is designating to the town, free and clear, for future rear lane, and that rear lane is to be accessed by those properties off of Street C in the future. Can we just hear a little bit more about that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. The demonstration plan does provide for those lands that are fronting on Street C that are not part of this plan of subdivision, but in the future would be there. Those are medium density designated lands, and the secondary plan provides that the medium density lands that front onto collector streets should be accessed using rear laneways, and Street C is identified as a collector street in the secondary plan. That property right now does not have sufficient depth to accommodate a rear lane. So in discussions with River Realty, they have agreed to dedicate that 7.5 meter strip of land to the town now as an interim measure. In the future, it would be developed as a rear lane when the abutting property owner comes forward with their development application. There is sufficient lot depth for lots 22 to 36 to accommodate conventional single detached residential housing.
So I understand from the report that those homes in the area that you just said, the developer's not interested in necessarily those homes using that rear lane and
That's
having
correct.
access to it. What happens again, in the future, should a homeowner come knocking at the town's door, or should a builder want access and wants to design the property in that way, whether it's putting in a pool in the backyard or whether it's actually using that and putting a garage in that area? How will that be dealt with, given the conditions that we have before us?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, through you. So at this point in time, there will not be the laneway will not be constructed or developed, and so those homes, lots 22 to 36, will not have the ability to access that laneway because it won't be there. It will only be developed and constructed when the adjacent landowner wishes to come in with his application and develop it. If sometime down the road and anyone on lots 22 to 36, if and when they choose to want to access that rear laneway, they would have to come to the town to seek permission. I suspect that there could be a 1-foot reserve placed along the backside of that rear laneway to prohibit access, and there would have to be a mechanism to lift that 1-foot reserve to allow those homes to have that
Okay.
access.
So the
That's-
final thing on that, so will it be almost like an unopened road allowance, or in this case, an unopened rear lane?
It would be, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. And the final is, there has been some, and I believe we mentioned it and we talked about it at the public meeting, there has been some interest in naming Street C a specific name.
Yes.
And that's because it connects all the way through past Port Robinson into the south area.
Yes.
And that is after the Clegger family.
Her family, correct.
So I hope the developers will have heard that and listened to that and consider that as they start on the beginning part of, I don't know if it's going to be Clegger Lane or whatever that's going to be, but, and maybe we can help facilitate a discussion with the Clegger family so that the
Yes.
appropriate, whether it's Clegger Street, Clegger Lane, or Clegger Boulevard be added. But if you can just ensure that that's in there as well.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, it is one of the names that we've identified for street names in the village, or in the East Fonthill area. And the Clegger family did own property in this area historically in the past, so it's appropriate. And we've had some preliminary discussions with the developer about this at the very beginning. Street names are assigned at the time of plan registration, so going forward, when we come forward with a final plan to council, that's when you will be seeing those street names, and we'll be working with the developer and hopefully can achieve that name.
I am hopeful as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those are all my questions. Any others? Councilor Rubiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for clarification, I take it that as I'm looking at the drawing of the subdivision, the subject of number 31, condition number 31, is that those lots will be shortened by that amount, right?
Through you, that is correct. Those lots are currently, I believe, about 43 meters deep, so they are very deep. Reducing it by the 7.5 meters still leaves lots that are amply deep enough to accommodate a single detached dwelling and have an appropriate size rear yard amenity area.
Right. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, and the 7.5 meters is enough for the entire laneway, or is there meant to be land dedicated to the laneway from the lots along Street C?
7.5 meters is what we are using in terms of designing the laneway. The laneway behind the townhouse blocks that front onto Summersides Boulevard is 7.5 meters as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good, thank you. Councilor Lane.
Yeah, just one quick point, if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
Is this 7.5 meters going to be delineated so that we don't have squatter people moving their garages or
Question.
sheds or whatever onto this property because there's nothing else behind it?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, at the time that the plan of subdivision is registered, there are iron bars placed in on the corners of all the property lines to delineate where the legal property line will be. And then typically homeowners will fence the rear yard, so they have the actual survey of their lot based on the registered subdivision plan that delineates where that line is.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Going to call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. As amended. Presentation consideration of bylaws. It has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration, the following bylaws do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass the same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. Bylaw 4041, 2018, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1131 from 1987, as amended for lands located between Summersides Boulevard and Port Robinson Road, west of Lametti Drive, legally described as part of Lot 169 and 167, being Part 1, 59R 16096, Part 1, 59R 16072, Part 2, 59R 15596, and Part 1, 59R 15462 in the town of Pelham from agricultural A zone to a site-specific residential 2 R2 286 zone, a site-specific residential multiple 1 RM dash 287 zone, and a site-specific residential multiple 1 RM1 dash 288 zone. Comments or questions? There be none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the following bylaw be read a first, second, third time and passed. Bylaw 4042, to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Pelham at its regular meeting held today on the 17th day of September 2018. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. It's been moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, this regular meeting of Council of September 17th, 2018 be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for October 1st at 6:30 p.m. right here. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
5 minutes.